Rob is muted.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Give him a second. He'll
There
figure it
is.
out. There you
What-
go.
Why are you all so loud in my ear? Y'all need to tone your voices down. It's too loud. Y'all be quiet. Welcome everybody to episode 275, Astral Projection. I'm not really with it right now. I've been doing this presentation, getting ready for this weekend for the past 3 days. So do not mind me. I'm here. I'm here physically. I'm not here very mentally. So we're going to be talking about leaving your body and flying around and doing that kind of stuff that people do. Supposedly, I don't know if I necessarily believe it to the extent that a lot of people say. But I've never done it. I've never tried to do it. I'm like, what happens if I get stuck and I'm traveling the starways for the rest of my life? Might be better than this, but then like, what if they put me in a coma?
You have a tether to your body, supposedly.
Yeah, but that can
According
you
to
can
what
get
I
lost.
heard.
You can get
Yeah.
lost though, from what I've heard. You know,
Yeah.
first of all, have any of you done that yet? Have any of you ever tried to project astrally?
Not me.
Let's do some stuff here real quick. Sorry guys, don't mean to interrupt. There we go. Hello, Lee. Lee is here.
Hello.
Hi, Stream Elements. I am not playing that. I'll have to go to my Twitch and fix that. Sorry about that, guys. I usually am on that. My brain is just.
I was trying to figure out what character I was. I thought maybe I was supposed to be wearing something tight and like boosty.
We don't
but
want.
I guess not.
We don't want to see you wearing anything tight, my friend. No offense.
And I don't want to wear it. So
Thank you.
You're
doing all. You're doing us all a big favor. So we appreciate you. You know, not doing that. So, anyways, guys, what are your thoughts? Oh, we're doing well, Lee. Thank you. Lee's a good friend of mine from Canada, actually, and I was on his show a couple times. He was on our show a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
He was on for the Christmas episodes, so it was good stuff.
Episodes.
We love Lee. He's a good guy. We get everybody on for the Christmas episodes. Maybe we'll do that this year to get everybody downtown like Julie Brown, if you know what I'm saying. So. But yeah, James has done.
Yeah.
James has pretty much done everything. I think. Like, I think that man has done it all. So, what do you guys think? What are your thoughts? Have either of you ever done it?
Not me.
I haven't made any serious attempts. I've always thought about it, and I've thought about the methodology, but I've never actually sat down and worked it out. Because for one thing, I don't think I can get my brain quiet enough for it. And for another thing, I do enough with the lucid dreaming that I think that's probably fine. Like that's about as close as it's going to get for me. Now, I do have funny stories about other people who claimed to do it, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
A little bit lather.
A little bit lather with some lather on.
Yeah.
Whatever I don't have up here.
He's always spaced out. Lee is the master of puns, so make sure you guys are checking that out. I don't. It's a tough one for me because I don't lucid dream. I've tried to make the effort to dream lucidly, but the ADHD in my brain feels like it's all over the place.
You're dreaming lucidly right now.
Times. Oh, this isn't real? Sweet.
No. Yeah.
See you later, dirtbags. I'm out.
You gotta be born a Highlander.
No, you don't. That's not true anymore. Let's see what you know about flying, champ. I would show you guys my cool Kirby socks, but I'm not going to do that because you're disrespectful. I got some cool pink Kirby socks, and now nobody's going to see them but me. You like them?
And when they get holes in
apples?
And when they get holes in them, just say it's Kirby using his power.
That's because Kirby sucks.
Exactly.
So if we're talking astral projection, what does that entail? Is it you going out exploring? And what is the difference between astral projection and dreaming? What are the two differences between those? Because I feel like astral projection just seems like it's a way of like Spider said. He didn't say, but like lucid dreaming. I feel like astral projection is more of like a lucid dream and less of you actually your physical spirit leaving your body. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I got the good old could be true, could not be true Wikipedia definition here, which is pretty close to it. It's a little bit more advanced than that, but the basics is basically astral projection, which is also called astral travel, soul journey, soul wandering, spirit journey, spiritual travel, etc. Walkabout, whatever you want to do.
Dreamwalker.
It's supposed to be an intentional out-of-body experience
Okay.
that assumes the existence of a separate body formed from your own consciousness, like an energy body or a spirit body,
Mhm.
that you can then use that to travel away from your own body while being conscious of the separation. So it's not something you do when you're sleeping. You're supposed to be wide awake, and you're supposed to have a tie that keeps you to your body in various forms of media. It's some kind of a cord. I know in pencil and paper Dungeons and Dragons, it used to be called a silver cord, and it's supposed to link you back to your body so that you can always find your way back and also keep you alive. Because if your consciousness gets separated from your body, then your mind and your spirit are lost, and your body is an empty shell, and it may keep on existing, but there's nobody home. Basically, brain
So
death.
is that almost like when you're dreaming and supposedly if you die in your dreams, you die in real life? Is that a very similar scenario to that?
Similar,
Okay.
because again, this is supposed to be your actual animating life force. Well, not entirely, because your body is still kept alive, separate from you. If you can completely separated from your body would just die without you.
Right.
So this is supposed to be just the mental part of it, which is why the cord is supposed to be necessary. And that's the
So
big difference, in that you're wide awake when you do it, rather than being in a dream state ahead of time.
so do you believe it's a real thing or do you think it's lucid dreaming?
I think it's a possibility. I know we've all read about things about different cultures, like some Asian monks, um, and some of the Australian Aborigines who have claimed to be able to go out and travel, and even some other ancient, like I think the Dogon, part of their deal was that their shamans could travel that way, and that's how they met the gods that came eventually and found them, and they were able to see parts of the universe. Um, and so I think it's potentially a possibility, because everything is energy. And if you could split your energy into multiple places via string theory, which is an interesting concept in relation to the silver cord, or other quantum mechanics, I think it's a potential. Now, whether anybody around today is proficient at it, I'm kind of skeptical, because we're, as a civilization, we're a lot less spiritually capable, I think, even people who are religious people. A lot of times, we talked about this, I think, either on last week's show or the week before, about how they may go through the motions of doing the prayers and doing whatever and believing in things, but they don't actually have the faith to back it up, because they're just following the motions. And I think that's the same across the board, whether you're religious or spiritual or whatever.
So this is my whole concept process behind this thing here. Um, I don't, until I see evidence to the contrary, I really don't believe it. I don't buy into it. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but to me, it just sounds more of like a meditative thing. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
some people can meditate and do that, right? But I don't think you ever truly leave your body. I think you can just expand your consciousness. I think you're always in your body. I just think your brain hits a point where it's like, okay, now I can kind of see the world around me. Another thing I think we need to mention here too is a lot of these tribes do drugs. I'm not.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't mean like.
Oh yeah.
I don't mean like illegal street drugs. It's not like doing like they're not doing.
Hallucinogenics.
But I think that a lot of that
Mm.
stuff plays a role. As a person who has done hallucinogenics in the past, I know the effect that they have on the brain. I've read studies and reports about micro dosing LSD to sort of right neural pathways in the brain, and I think that that's a very solid idea. I think that's something people that are bipolar, people that have like instances of manic depressiveness or manic modes. I know a couple people that get manic modes. I get manic modes, but I've read that LSD sort of fixes the chemicals in the brain. And I've always been a strong proponent of LSD. That was one of my things I did when I was a lot younger. I was like 19, 20, and I always, the one thing I always did because of the ADHD, I always enjoyed it. I never had a bad trip. I never went nuts, but it was very much like a good time. It sort of righted the receptors in my brain that were put there from trauma. I never went beyond that because I liked the ability that I could sort of like mess with my own reality a bit, watching walls breathe or colors are being more or sharper or that sort of thing. But I never dug into like peyote or ayahuasca or DMT because I think a lot of the time you're playing with something, you're doing something to your brain that I truly believe can have lasting harmful effects. Now, we look at shamans, we look at Native Americans, maybe they were already wired into that. Maybe they were already able to comprehend. Because I haven't read a lot of spots where Native Americans were having bad trips, where they were, going insane. But we do read about folks that take DMT and they see these ant-like beings, and I don't like my reality shifted to that extreme, if that makes sense. So, like I stated previous and prior, I have to wonder if the hallucinogenics and not so much the ability of the mind are what is playing into those. Excuse me, gentlemen, is playing into those alternate realities or astral projection. Like I said, if people have done it, that's fine. I just don't see any solid evidence for it being possible.
And that brings up a good point, because when you do specifically what's described as astral projection, you're also not necessarily just leaving your body and just traveling wherever. You're supposed to be able to travel through a very specific place that is designed for your mind to travel through, which has been labeled as the astral plane, which always sounds like, because I've been a role-playing gamer, it always just sounds like that's where they pulled it from. But it was around,
it's like an
yeah,
alternate reality.
the
That they
term
pulled
was
from
there
RPG
before that, but
mechanics.
it just
Way
always
before.
reminds me of that, so it always seems like it's just something funny. But in this astral location that you're traveling through, travel times are reduced, distances are shorter or longer depending on where you're trying to go. You don't get hungry, you don't get thirsty, you don't need anything, and there's supposed to be other beings that exist there that are either natives or are possibly dark or light spiritual beings, like different, like potentially people have said that they're angels and demons, etc., whatever. Now this leads me to a funny story, because you will get people who've said, "Oh yeah," I mean, I don't want to say that, I don't want to cast any doubt on James, so I'm not using James as like an example. I'm just saying you'll run into other people who have said that they've done it, and it's pretty clear that they haven't. Because if you listen to all the basics, like, "Oh yeah, you're not supposed to eat, drink, whatever," all that kind of stuff, people will make up a lot of stuff. I didn't know this guy personally, but on a forum that my wife used to be on years and years ago for like metaphysical things, I think they used to talk about like tarot and stones, mostly stones, I think, right? Like gems and things. And this guy, he's younger than me, I know that much. He was pretty clearly younger than me too, because he had a picture.
Didn't you?
I
feel like I remember this.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about him before. But
He was
would
a big
come onto
goof,
the
wasn't
thing.
he? He's a big
Oh yeah,
goofball.
he would come
I
in
saw it.
to this forum and he would tell stories about how, "Oh yeah, I astral project all the time, and I've got 12 demon wives who live
Oh,
with me in the
yeah.
astral plane, and
Yeah,
they
I
do
remember
whatever I
this.
I
want,
remember
and
this.
they help me deal drugs because there's the economy there, and we're rich and everything." I'm like,
Right.
none of that sounds like something that actually happens.
None of that is physically feasible.
Not a single thing.
Now, I will say this: it does remind me of the idea, and let me take a second here. It's okay, James. We don't have to agree on everything. I'm not mad either way about it.
You
Like I
should
said,
actually. Oh, go ahead.
Steven, you better be careful, man. You over here instigating. We're gonna have to fire you before you
No,
even have been on the
I was
fourth
just
show.
I was just gonna say you should do a special episode where you get James on and you have an actual debate.
No,
Have-
I'm not gonna do that because he believes what he believes. I believe what I
Yeah.
believe, and I don't want to
That's
do
fair.
that. Apple only has 3 demon wives. I have 32. So step your game up. 32 demon wives. That
You know,
sounds
you
like
got
an
to build that
anime.
drug empire.
I feel like this is an anime that just went off the rails completely. Like
It's you know what?
it
That's
does.
actually what. Now that I think about it, the more it
Yeah.
sounds like what he was talking about. It sounds like it was
Yes.
like a
I think I've seen
isekai
that one.
harem
He
thing.
he full on has a body pillow of some anime girl, full body pillow that he sleeps
I
with.
bet.
Probably married
I
to it.
bet.
So this is what
We'll
I
be
want
coming
to
up
say.
on that too. I want to make sure I highlight this. This was our listener who suggested the topic for us. Our buddy Chris there.
This is what I would like to say. This dude talks of the whole I've got 12 demon wives in the other one, right?
Mm.
But I noticed something very odd. If we go to the Quran and we read about the jinn who supposedly existed well before the Quran, they were known by pagan Arab nomads that traversed Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Oman before Muhammad had his revelation and before they sort of coalesced into one group of people. Supposedly, the jinn can both marry, have children, and they both go into one dimension and out another dimension, and vice versa. And they can go into our dimension as much as they can go into their dimension. And so that kind of always strikes me as odd because we don't, in Christianity, they have what are known as the Nephilim. They were the offspring of Watcher and human women, and they were these giant beings. But in Islam, they don't have a fallen angel. Those don't exist in the belief system. But what does exist are jinn. And jinn supposedly, now obviously I don't have proof of this, exist between two worlds. They exist in our human world, and they also exist in their own jinn world. So I just wanted to point that out because I wonder if he took those concepts and said, let's flare this up a bit. I'll have some demon wives, and I sell demon drugs in the demon world. It boggles my mind. Like he definitely was on something. Like he was
that
on
kind
something.
of stuff. Yeah, that kind of
Sorry,
stuff.
I didn't mean
like,
to go on a tangent.
It's a good point though, because a lot of modern spiritual type people, for
Right.
lack of a better term, will collect stuff from different places and then throw them all together into a belief blender and come out with something that's really kind of obnoxious. Like it's good to take from different places, but at the other hand, it's kind of good. It's like you can only take so much before it starts
No, I
getting a
agree.
little bit ridiculous, and you're getting a little bit away from the point. Which is
I
what
will
makes
show
the
them
show.
that after the show, James. When you sent me that, I was like laying in bed, getting ready to go to bed. Because, like I said, I've been working on this presentation for about a solid week now. And then before that, I just been reading and researching because I want to make sure this presentation goes off without a hitch tomorrow because I'm representing us. Of course, Leah Carpenter will have her stickers for sale. I will be selling them. I will be at the Penn Ohio Paranormal Conference 2 tomorrow from 10:30 to I think they're going to go to 5 or 6 and in Hermitage, PA. So come out and see some great speakers. You've got myself. I'll be speaking on giants and some I came upon some new interesting information that I'm definitely going to be love to share to the people. And I will be selling stickers from Stickles from Apple Tree Jamboree, aka Leah Carpenter and WV Fantasy Works. So come by, get some stickers, and we're going to be getting some more merch in. We need to get a banner, which I will be working on getting. I've just been, bills come out quick. It's that time of year again when the cars need fixing. So you got to get those bad boys fixed. And just making sure that my son's good because obviously, got to take care of little man because he's important to me. And yeah, it's okay, James. You're good to go. So getting back on track here, yeah, I agree. We see a lot of that. We see a lot of sort of, and this is the kind of the one thing that irks me with a lot of the new age movement type folks. They throw in all this like astrological aspects to science that makes sense. And they throw it in like they'll get into a car wreck and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm an asparagus." This is something that I'm, I didn't mean to. I'm an asparagus, but it's interesting because things like crystals and things like chakra are very much real. Chakra's been discussed by ancient Asian mystics in China for a very long time. Ancient Chinese mystics for a very long time. So once again, to get back on track, and to get back onto the Project Stargate stuff that Chris had mentioned here in a little bit, I think a lot of that stuff too is more of a mind cleansing your mind, clearing your mind. A lot of these Buddhist monks, a lot of the Shaolin monks who are not Buddhist, a lot of your Brahmin priests in India, they spend decades. They don't do anything else. They don't go to work. A lot of them don't have families because they have to practice celibacy. They don't do any of that. So if that's all you have, and retention of the male reproductive in many circles has been thought to increase mental awareness. It heightens sensibilities. And so if you have that and you're not doing those things, I don't want to get too lewd here on the stream, obviously, but if you put all that together, it's going to work a lot different than if you would get like Joe Schmo that can do this, that, and the third. So I think that that's a very good point that you bring up, that, there's these priests and things that can do that. But a lot of time you don't hear about Joe Average Man being like, yeah, I astral projected yesterday. It's always like somebody that has something going for them. Right. And I don't know James's circumstance. And like I said, we're not trying to dog on you, James. But a lot of times with people that say they can astral project, it seems to be like they're, how do I put this? Like a space case, if that makes sense. I've met very few normal human beings that astral project. It's like they have to have a whole persona wrapped around the fact that they can astral project. Like, whoa, dude, man, feel the vibes and everything, instead of scientifically. And I think this happens quite frequently, that we see these scientific things happening, but people cover it with this sort of dude mentality, like peace, love, and dudes, man, it's all good,
And that's what makes it difficult to study.
There it is. And that's the thing.
Because
that's
they
all
come up with the stuff.
And they're high 90% of the time. That's another thing. Like, you can't have a normal conversation with them because they're usually too high, or they're so burnt from being high 24/7 that there's no scientific knowledge to be gained. Like, I would love to take a person, like James or somebody else, set up a experiment, like a sleep experiment, and register brain waves, register your theta waves and things like that, and then register it A when they're doing it and register it B when they're not, and seeing what those differences are, compare and contrast, and then put out a scientific hypothesis. This, I think that, if it is possible that we can astral project, right? Because there have been, and once again, there have been tales of these monks, or, even in, folktale type stuff where the hero goes to sleep and then they traverse so long and then they wake up in this other place. So anyways, yes, didn't mean to go off the rails there, but I wanted
and it's all energy, really. Like,
that's
the other thing too, and that's what keeps me keeping my mind open on the whole thing, because we know how energy works, and how everything is just different frequencies of energy, and so theoretically all those things could be possible. It's just most of the time the people who talk about it the most are the people who are in tune with it the least.
Yeah.
With the exception of, like, here, we asked our audience about it, we've talked about it, which is why I don't have any problems. Like, I'm not going to come down on James and be like, no, you haven't, because for one, I don't know, and for another, I trust James more because he doesn't come out and brag about things all the time. He shows up in the chat, he chats with us, he answers questions. He's modest about it. It's not somebody coming through and be like, oh yeah, I sold 12,000 pounds of astral drugs to the critters there, and I'm rich.
Of astral Northern Lights, and it was great. Speaking,
I'm a huge drug dealer.
Before we get into Project Stargate, are you guys going to do anything for this eclipse? I mean, it's going to go right down the barrel for us. So I'm going to take my son, and we're going to go check that thing out. And did anybody read that they're going to reactivate CERN on the same day as the solar eclipse?
Is that why all the billionaires have been preparing their bunkers?
I don't know.
It's
All I know is I think anytime people bring up CERN,
bad
It gets
news.
tied to things. It always
yeah,
gets tied to things.
I
like,
don't look at CERN like it's this big bad like monster that a lot of people do, and if you do, that's okay. That's neither here nor there. But I do think that there are things that we probably shouldn't mess with, but I don't think that's one of them. I think as we move forward, I think that is imperative to us traveling to the stars. I think understanding particles better gives us a new way to get new energies moving. Because as it stands now, well, as far wise as, a lot of people say that the government has technology that's very advanced, which, it's very possible. I mean, shoot, come on. But on that same token, I'm all for scientific exploration. I'm all for getting us out to the stars. I think if we want to have a better world for our children, for our children's children, I think pushing ourselves out to the starways is the most acceptable answer, and I don't see why we couldn't do it. We have enough money. We spend all these billions of dollars to go to war and all that jazz. But I think if the nations of the world could unite, we could have something. Because I want to point this out before we get into into what we're talking about tonight. If you notice Antarctica, all the countries are pretty much on the same page in Antarctica. Why is that? If we don't like each other, why are we cool there? Why are we not on site with somebody? You know what I mean? Like, you are in Antarctica, it's on site. I'm gonna get you. But in Antarctica, it's all smiles and handshakes. Why is that? Something to think about. Anyways,
kind of how
continue.
space is supposed to be, which has been kind of touch and go because we had that incident with the International Space Station, how we had Russian and American astronauts up there, and then the thing with the Ukraine happened, and everybody's like, "Oh no, what's going to happen?" And they were like, "Well, first we got to pull our people down." And it
Yeah.
seemed like there was going to be some trouble with that, but then that kind of got worked out, so they're kind of still working together on that despite everything else going on, which is, it's an important thing because certain places like space and Antarctica and certain parts of the oceans are collaborative things. It's
Yeah.
more than just boundaries and things.
And that's the thing, are these beefs just for hype? Is it just something that people can say, hey, and I, you have to wonder that, I don't know. Anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Oh yeah. I was just gonna add on that, yeah, we are gonna go down. I got a pair of the eclipse glasses, the special shades. I got 2 pairs
Where are you going?
for me. We're
What
gonna
part
probably
of
I'm gonna
Ohio?
s- I'm gonna see about going down to the park down by the monument here,
Oh,
as long as
McKinley.
it's not too busy. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it should be wide open down there.
Yeah.
We could probably see it from the house, but I wanted to get a little bit more open space. I'll probably
Oh,
take
yeah,
the
definitely.
folding chairs down there. We'll have a seat and hang out
Yes.
and see if we can spot it. And hopefully it's not too busy because I know I can bet a lot of other people are going to have a similar idea. But
Oh, yeah.
I think if we go at a certain enough time, I think we'll be able to catch a good side of it because
I
she
think
hasn't
I'm
seen
good.
anything like that before.
If you want to come up here, by all means.
We might
Bring
do
the
that. I
kids.
mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't have anything else. I think
I've got
keep
nothing.
me at the house for
What
the
day?
moment.
What
So
what day is that? The 8th?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what, a Friday, something like that. It's a
Something
Monday.
obnoxious. It's a
It's a
Monday?
Monday.
What time does it start and what time is totality?
I haven't looked at that yet, and I was
need
gonna wait
to,
until it got
because I'll
closer.
probably
So
have to work that day, so I got to figure out like if I can just dip out a little bit early, which I'll probably do anyways. What are they gonna do? Nothing. That's what they're gonna do. Because I want to see it. I've been wanting to see this thing I've seen one in my life. I saw one some years back, not totality, but and then I saw the coolest one I've ever seen was on the roof of my old house, my parents' old house back when I lived in another city, and I was a youngin', and my dad put a ladder to the roof, and we all climbed up on the roof, and my dad, held me as we watched, and it was a total moon eclipse. Probably one of the coolest things I think I've ever seen. Anyways, let's jump into Project Stargate. Tell us what it is, and tell us what you know about it.
well, I got the basics on it, but I think this is something that that Steven was researching. So I'm thinking
Well,
I'm
he
gonna
better
pass
been,
the
or he's
baton
fired.
Yes.
No, he's fired.
and let him start us off. So, what
All
you
right.
got?
Let him just do the rest of the show. We'll just take little naps.
All right, so from 1969 to 1971, the CIA believed that the Soviet Union was training its citizens to become psychic spies. I can't speak either, apparently.
Spikex.
Yeah, psychic spies, because their efforts were initially funded by 60 million rubles in 1970, but in 1975, that increased to 300 million rubles. So they thought that was a sign of success since they were increasing the funding on it. So they decided to start making their own projects, and that's when they decided to come out with Project Stargate. And let me look in my notes real quick. And one of the people they used was Uri Geller, who was a pop culture icon at the time for pinning
I know who Uri
spoons.
Geller is.
And they wanted to test his abilities in 1973. So they put him in a room which prevented sight, sound, and electricity, and then proceeded to pick a random word from a dictionary, illustrated its meaning, and then they drew it and put it on a room that was separate from outside of where he was. The first thing they drew was a firecracker, and he drew a drum, which he described as a cylindrical object which makes sound. And they drew a bunch of grapes for the word bunch. They drew 24. He also drew exactly 24 grapes. And then skipping ahead a little bit, in 1977, the government started using these powers in real operations in matters of national security, such as the Gondola Wish program, with the purpose of training personnel to collect sensitive intelligence using psychic abilities in order to determine potential threats, weaknesses, and methods for defense. And a year later, when it actually became operational, they called it Project Grill Flame. And it continued until 1991, when it became Project Stargate, which cost them $20 million, and they had 40 personnel, 23 of which were remote viewers. And over the years that the program was active, they claimed many what they called 8 martini successes, because the people had to drink 8 martinis, one for each remote viewer, to calm down when they were doing all this.
I'd be passed out at that point.
Yeah. And like a lot of this honestly sounds like it might just be lucky guesses, but they had about a 20% success rate. But like they had some really interesting stuff, like let me see if I can find it in my notes. There was a bomber, like a submarine that they found, and like a downed submarine. And they found that. And hang on. There was a man named Joe McMoneagle. McMoneagle.
That sounds fake.
McMoneagle. Yeah, it sounds like the professor from Harry Potter, right?
Right.
But eventually, blah blah blah. Let me skip ahead a little bit. Here's one. The remote viewers were able to draw secret Soviet bases and find hostages, and even found Scud missiles during the First World War. And one remote viewer even predicted the attack on the World Trade Center, but it was ignored. And in 1989, a remote viewer named Angela Ford was able to find a customs agent on the run and tracked him down to Lowell, Wyoming, which doesn't exist, but they found him in Lovell, Wyoming, which does exist, just a single letter off. And Joe McMoneagle, that's the one I was talking about a second ago, was an intelligence officer in Vietnam in 1970. And when he was almost killed in a helicopter accident, he recovered. And he says he also awakened to his psychic powers, if you believe what he says. He claimed to see something very high and said it almost looked like pyramids when they handed him an envelope on May 22nd, 1984, and gave him geographical coordinates. The researcher told him to go back to a time when the shadow people that he saw were there. But when he did, he went back and he found what he described as an obelisk that reminded him of the Washington Monument, pyramids that appeared to be storm shelters, and in the pyramids, more hibernating people and dying past their time and age. After all this, they finally instructed him to open the envelope, where he found the planet Mars, time of interest approximately 1 million years BC.
Wait,
And
what was that abbreviation?
yes, 1 million years BC.
So it's almost like they went so fast that in time travel, if you go fast enough,
You
you'll
go
sort
back
of
in time.
go back to the beginning because
Yeah.
you're going
So
fast.
he also claims to be a time traveler because he claims that he was able to see that far into the past of Mars, apparently. And here it is. Project Stargate itself was shut down in the 90s, but in 2014, the Office of Naval Research launched a 4-year and $4 million program to explore the use of premonition or sixth sense amongst sailors and Marines. And Dr. Ed May, the former head of Project Stargate, continues to this day to claim ESP is a significant tool in military intelligence and in highly respected communities such as scientific, military intelligence, and the highest level of governments. There are still people who support research into the paranormal, for what it's worth.
And to add to that, they did a lot of really kind of strange experiments during that time period. One of which was turned into a nonfiction book about a guy who did the research on some of these things, and then he compared that to things that they were doing post 9/11. I guess they were trying to do things to interrogate prisoners. And but during the course of that, he learned of a project that eventually became a movie that some people may have watched called "The Men Who Stare at Goats."
Oh, with George Clooney.
And it was part of this whole series of tests. It was designed to be bringing out the mental powers of certain special forces soldiers to the point where they could stare at somebody and cause them some form of distress or outright just stop their heart. And so they tested it on goats. And supposedly somebody said that he did it, but there's no actual evidence that anything happened. Some people claim that the goats they got were the famous fainting goats, so that they thought it was working because the goats would fall over. But I don't know. The whole story is kind of silly, but it's apparently a true story that they tried to do things with mental powers in such a way that they tried to cause people's hearts to stop, and their tests were on the goats.
Like, I think a lot of this is interesting, but I also personally find a lot of it difficult to believe because it's like, as interesting as it is finding, like, you know, where the terrorists are or getting a location right, it's also kind of like, you know, it could still just be a coincidence.
Here's my synopsis of all this. I am not. I can't really buy into the whole like killing goats with your eyes type of idea.
Yeah.
But I do believe there are ways to influence human beings via eye contact. Being able to look at somebody and stare at them and sort of will them, okay, you're going to scare our listeners, Stephen. That's quite enough. You're going to be fired.
The evil eye.
I will fire Stephen, and he will be fired. Out of a cannon into the sun.
I'm the new spider.
But there's a way, and they've talked about this like mentally, like in terms of being able to make somebody kind of do what you want to via eye contact and things of that nature. But I don't. It's tough because I think the government will throw money at everything. If something can be done, and I know this because I'm reading about the Smithsonian and their involvement with giants and Els Hardlicka and all that stuff. And they threw money at stuff, and you're like, why would you throw money at that? And then turn around and say that thing is a hoax. But I do believe the human mind is very powerful. I do engage into, thought processes via meditation. Meditating is interesting. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm sitting in the shower and I'm letting the water run down, the crown, and the water gets to a point where all you hear is water, sometimes I can meditate myself into a past time frame. Not like I'm not meditating myself back into like, the assassinations of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, but I'll remember points of my life. Like I remember going to places like, Cedar Point when I was younger, or places like that, right? And I'll feel like I'm there to a point to when I come back to reality, it's like I've been gone for a minute, but it hasn't, because meditation is a very interesting thought process. It's a very interesting study because some people can meditate so deeply they can tap into their subconsciousness, which can be dangerous. It can be a very dangerous thing if you don't know what you're doing. And I have read reports and accounts of people who meditate very deeply. And, I would like to do that, but it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of, and I'm sure Spider's done this. He seems like he's done more of this kind of thing in relation to meditation, into physical action than I have. And I respect that from him. And so with me, it's like I try to meditate, but there's too much going on and my brain is very pinpoint thinking. But it's like when I'm in the shower and the water's coming down, I can zone out to that water sound. It's the same. It's the same with like sitting under a waterfall or being in the water. You get to that point where you can hear nothing but the water, and it relaxes me and it makes me feel very much like I am. I don't want to say one with something, but it feels like my brain is calming down. It's like a lot of times with ADHD stuff, your brain itself is it's like a lot of people talking in a room at one time. Yeah, everybody's talking at once. So it's like, yeah, everybody's talking at once. But then when the water starts coming down my head and I'm just like kind of in my zone, it's like I'm the only one that's talking. If that
It's white
makes any
noise.
sense to either of you. Yes.
It's white
I
noise.
can't meditate
Like
in
white
silence.
noise, the frequency is just this bass, just like bassy kind
Yes.
of thing. And you get that in a lot of different areas. You get it from rainfall naturally creates white noise.
Which I love. I love
It's one
listening
of the
to
most
rain when I
natural
sleep.
it's one of the most natural, least manufactured things that you can do to get white noise.
need
Stand
rain.
out in the rain or listen to one of those albums that people put together, just like thunderstorms and stuff like that. Now
Your
I
AirPods
listen
do that
to
too.
I don't get a chance to as much anymore.
Mhm.
I've kind of fallen off as far as listening to as much music as I used to, which is kind of a shame for me. But when I was a lot younger, I used to listen to a lot of drone music, like dark ambient stuff, which is like soundscapes
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
wind and things like that. And it's the same effect. And
Yes.
when I have done various things in the past that could be considered ritual things, that's one of the tools I use. I have a little headset. I load up on whatever my iPod or whatever, some drone music that isn't going to be scary and spooky and mess with me, but stuff that's just going to be like, okay, it's just going to be like a buzz in my brain almost. And use that to kind of help get in the mind space. And it's something that people have used for a long time as far as like we look at ancient ruins, like we know now that Stonehenge is acoustic. It uses the acoustics and things in a certain way,
Yeah.
and it's the same concept. It's using the sound to both amplify things and to penetrate certain parts of your brain with certain frequencies that can help you think in different ways.
Frequencies are everything. We need to, I think that might be next week's episode where we'll talk about some frequencies, but frequencies are very important. They're very important to your mental well-being. There is a study that came out and they put like rap and hard rock and things like that at a certain frequency, but they have classical music, certain forms of jazz at a lower one. Sorry. I'm hearing like cryptids outside. It's probably a dog. But and
Raccoons, maybe.
so I listen to like binaural beats sometimes too. And you can 100% tell the difference between, I don't know if people have ever done this, but like if the type of music you listen to can put you in a certain mood. Like when I'm lifting, when I'm at the gym working out, I listen to usually like hardcore rap or hardcore rock because it energizes my body. It gets me to keep getting those pumps, those gains, get it in, right? When I'm studying, when I'm reading or understanding, it's more of a chill hop. It's more of a jazz. It's more of a Vivaldi type shit. Um, this would make sense, Ryan, if you didn't tell me that they don't go outside of their area because they lose their powers when they go outside of their area. And I didn't forget that, my friend. I did not forget that. Besides, they're not going to hang out in Ohio. Nobody hangs out in Ohio. We just live here.
We
We
don't
don't
know
hang
why we
out.
hang out now.
We don't even know why we're hanging out now. But I think that music will propel change, or even it's all mood based. You know, when I listen to drum and bass, I feel energetic. When I listen to jazz at night, when I'm laying in bed, I feel calm. When I listen to hardcore rap music at the gym, um, I'm ready to get those weights in. I'm like, let's go, come on, do it now. I'm here, kill me, do it. You know what I mean? So, and that's it.
And-
Like, I think frequencies, our brains react to frequencies.
The
To those
brown
people who,
note.
here we go.
I
He
mentioned
remembers
that
that
once
one.
during a
Don't,
past
please
show.
not. I don't want to do this again.
But on the other token, though, it's even connecting that back to the discussion we've been having about the government's usage of mental things.
Yep.
They do use music for different not
They
great
hemisync.
reasons. Like one
Yeah.
of my favorite bands is an industrial band called Skinny Puppy. And they're real harsh. They're really kind of, some
Very
people
much.
can't stand them because they're really grating on the ears. But I like it because I'm attuned to that kind of thing. I'm really into it. But they had to sue the U.S. government because a story had come out about Guantanamo Bay and how the government was using music to try to make the people that they had there uncomfortable. And some of the music they were using was like super sugary, like pop things. And I don't remember some of them, but I know it was kind of funny in that regard. But it's not funny to use it against people as like a tool of just trying to harm somebody. But it was kind of
Oh, no, I get that.
funny that they would use pop music that I don't like because I'm already uncomfortable when I listen to it. But they also use some stuff that some of my favorite bands that are industrial and heavy and harsh because it can bother people who aren't into that. It can make them uncomfortable. It can make them, and so they would pump that in. And this band had to sue. And I don't know if that ever, we don't use Guantanamo for that kind of thing anymore. But I don't think that it's stopped the practice of that kind of thing against, because since you're not physically assaulting the person, it doesn't yet count as cruel and unusual punishment. But still, it's again the idea that certain sounds are going to get into your head and they're going to bother you to the point where you're going to cooperate or you're going to go crazy or something.
So, like,
Yeah.
Replay by Ayaz.
I don't know what that is.
It's a song you don't want to hear because you'll never hear it. And once you hear it, you'll never unhear it.
I don't.
It's what
Yeah, I
Spider
don't-
was talking about, essentially.
He's broken. He just broke. Like I saw his
My
brain.
brain
just
is like click
huh?
clack. clickety,
I'm known
clack.
for.
Huh?
I'm
Right.
pretty much known for breaking people's brains.
It's not even that to me. I think, and the funny thing is, like, I guess they did studies where they took music, like they took somebody was taking a test, right, and they were listening to a certain song when they were studying for the test, and then when they took the test, they let them listen to that song again, and they were able to pull the answers because they were listening to that song. They thought, oh, I remember this part. I remember this. They were able, excuse me very much. They were able to pull from association. So once again, I think that and James is right here, and I want to say something else too. Like, sound is a weapon. If you play we'll go this as simple as possible. There is a note that opera singers can use that will break glass. It's like, I think it's C sharp, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they can hit a vocal note and glass will crack or glass will break.
At a certain octave too, because it can't just be at a medium or
Right.
whatever. It has to be at
Right.
a certain
It's like a very high pitch octave, which shows you that it vibrates on a level that can break
at a certain
glass.
speed.
Yeah. Steven loves the brown note. He's a big fan. Big
The
fan.
South
It's
Park
very,
episode.
very appalling.
The South Park episode was great.
Yeah, but we're not on South Park. We're in Ohio.
No, but you are talking about
No.
frequencies, and the brown note is a
But
frequency.
in the good way, not in the way of your defecating in your undergarment. It's not a good thing, Steven. You're losing some merits today, buddy. You need to wear more flair. You don't got enough
Yeah.
flair on your shirt. You need to get more flair going.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think that the government itself will pour money into something just to see if something makes sense or fits. And then they tax us to death. That's why we didn't get a lot of tax dollars back on our taxes. They're busy trying to find out if you stare at something long enough, if it will in fact die. So there you go. There's where all your tax money went.
$600,000 to find out why monkeys throw.
Is that Manson? Did he mean Manson? Or was there a
I
Charles
think so
Manchin?
because he used to play he used to play Beatles albums and try and
That
tell all of his
wasn't it
followers that
backwards?
they had
Didn't he play
also
him
frontwards. He
backwards?
said sometimes that there were regular messages within the White Album that was telling
Well,
him things.
we talked about the
And
Paul is Dead album
Mhm.
where there's symbology on the cover of like, so and so is the grave digger, so and so is
Mhm.
the pallbearer, the undertaker, all that jazz. So that was an interesting episode. We should have to pull it back. Yeah, and I mean music is the easiest way to do it. Music is one of the easiest ways to elicit feeling. I will give you an example. Look at Taylor Swift. She will sell out concerts, giant venues, and you have people that will lose their absolute loving mind crying. The Beatles, same way. Girls were screaming and crying when they first came out, just sobbing. That's how powerful music is. I mean, I would be lying if I said there's not certain songs that I hear that make me come to tears because I relate it to a time in my life that was
Same way.
happy and or sad. So
And
I think the power of music is a lot bigger than we give credit to.
and it's illustrated in ancient stories as well. Like we have the
Yes.
Odyssey. That was it was either
Yeah.
the Odyssey or the Iliad. I think it was the Odyssey where he had they encountered the sirens, right? It was one or the other. It was either the Odyssey or the
Oh,
Iliad.
I want to say the Odyssey. I
I
could
think
be wrong,
so.
but I want to say the Odyssey. Oh, well, don't forget the Walls of Jericho.
Yeah,
That was a sound
yeah.
instrument. They
Vibrational,
marched
same
around,
thing.
blew the
hmm
trumpet, boom, there they go.
That's a good point, James. Is it the actual message in the song itself, or is it how the
Spider's face is
song's being
freezing.
presented to you?
Like your face is frozen.
I can do that too.
Me too.
That's
Here
all
you
the
go.
food.
Yeah, I think Spider's been having some problems with his cameras. It's been focusing in and out. But yeah, it's tonalities. I think he's straight up gone.
Oh no. What are you
Look
gonna
at him.
do?
We should do his voice. Oh, I'm Spider. I like to eat grumpy
There he
cheese
is.
bits. There he is. Yeah, dude,
Okay.
you were having some problems there. You were like
Yeah,
focusing
I
in
don't
and
know
out.
what that was. Everybody's screens just started swirling. I think something
Yep.
happened with my Wi-Fi, so I turned off the Wi-Fi. Now I'm on the 5G.
I
Oh
think.
no, the
Oh no, the
5G.
frequencies. They're gonna break your brain stems.
Yep.
So what do you guys think? Closing time. Closing time. I don't know. Whatever. What do you guys think? Astral projection, legit or not legit? Steven, you go first.
I'm undecided. I've
Okay.
seen a lot of stuff, but a lot of it might be coincidence for me.
I
Okay.
think it's potentially possible because again, it revolves around energy, and I think energy can do a lot more than what we know it can do. There's still a lot more research to be done in particles and in quantum mechanics that can probably potentially explain a lot of that stuff.
Like I said, I'm undecided, just based on the sheer amount of people that say they have done it, and you got to kind of wonder, like those people's mental states. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but in terms of how people like to describe it, I don't know if I buy into it in that regard. But I think that the idea of astral travel and deja vu are somehow related. And I don't know how, but I think there's somehow. And I think Spider brings up a good point about string theory. I think there's something to that. I really think there's something to that. Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate you, brother. Go check out Ryan Tremblay. He's a solid dude. We had him on the show, and it was a
hmm
great show. He hit me to some new information that I didn't
Yep,
know before. So thank you,
yep.
Ryan. We love you, man. You're a good dude. James, thank you. We love you. Some dude named Deadpool. You're all right. Let's see. What was there? What was there? Lee Dickey TV, love you, man. Take care of yourself. Chris, love you, man. Take care of yourself. Of course, Apple Tree, love you. Take care of yourself. Guys, if you like to hear more, please sit back, have a listen. We got more episodes. We got more episodes coming. Tomorrow, I will be presenting on Giants at the Penn, Ohio Paranormal Conference 2, hosted by one Mr. Bill Rigby. He's in on that jazz. Amy Boo is the host. We have Christine. I'm not sure. We had to switch out some guests, and I want to take a brief second to send our condolences out to Fred Saluga. His daughter had passed away at 2:30, either yesterday or the day before. I apologize if I got that wrong. Fred's a good guy. Fred and Bob Schultz both put me on to speaking. Without those two gentlemen, I would not be presenting tomorrow. So please, if you guys could, love, prayers, energy, however you believe, send it out to Fred Saluga. He's a good dude. We got a lot of love for him. So, to Fred, man, hold your head up, man. Yeah, we're here for you. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight's program on astral projection. Next week, we're going to be talking about frequencies because I like talking about frequencies. So anyways, guys, as always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see you folks next week. Peace.